Okay, we're recording. And a whole bunch of people are here. I'd love it if there were more people here, but why don't we get started? I'm going to put into the chat the URL for this page that you're seeing. And when it comes time to do fancy string formatting, this page is wonderful. It says this page is causing my Mac to slow down. I wonder why. Possibly because of the ads. Okay, so anyway, this is a wonderful, wonderful page for when you start using string formatting, but I'm going to close this page now. Make it go away. Okay. So let's take a look at what we're going to do today. First thing I want to say is that I've graded a whole bunch of projects, and not all of them, and they're looking really good. Every score so far has been 90 or above. So round of applause to you. Now the scores which are less than 90 are people who didn't turn in a project. So every single project that's been turned in has been almost perfect or perfect. So good for you guys. Other things we're going to do today, of course, we're going to do review and book questions. We're going to do some new knowledge. We're going to introduce the while loop, which is like a for loop, in that they're both loops. Break and continue, which are valid only inside of loops, like the for or while. We'll learn a different way of doing a for loop with enumerate, a different way of setting up a for loop. And then we'll spend the latter part of the class writing a much more simplified version, a very simplified version of P2, so that you can feel confident about writing project 2. Does that sound good? See, that's a rhetorical question. Actually, you don't get a choice. So, okay. So how about review? Questions on anything we've done this term? Jonathan, you have a question for review? How about Eric? Are you there? So Eric Benson, say hello.
Hi, sorry, I was filling up my water bottle. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yep. All is forgiven. Thank you. Jonathan Williams, can you say hello? Okay, well, the yellow box moved. So so on my screen, the yellow box moved to Jonathan, so you must be there. Thank you. Okay, so who's got a question? Somebody's got to have a question. If you don't have questions, I get cranky, and then everybody gets Fs. How about questions from the book? Is there any part of the book that is getting you down?
I don't know. Unfortunately, I just don't have any questions right now. I don't know.
Say, are you in the tower?
No, I'm in the basement of Straz right now.
Ah, okay. Yep.
I was working on a lab report, so I was working on a lab report, and then I just decided to come down here because I want to go a little quieter, and I didn't want to bother as many people being upstairs. Came downstairs.
And probably has much better Wi-Fi speed right now.
Yeah.
Fewer people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Say, does anybody in the class live in the tower? Nobody? Anybody? Okay.
Yeah, I could have gotten the tower, but I'm actually in a triple this year, so a little bit different. It's different than a normal dorm, but it's still kind of the same thing. Just it's bigger, which is nice. Like ceilings are a lot higher, and there's more room. Pretty nice.
Yep. Yep. Well, the reason why I brought it up is anybody ever sat at the laptop bar in the tower? Okay, well, the next time you're there, look for something look around the laptop bar and let us know what you find. And if it's $100 bill, it's mine. Okay. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. So nobody has questions from the book either. So you're all scoring 100% on the book. I got to find a way to put a over my shoulder cranky meter because my level of crankiness is going up way up. All right. Okay. Well, if nobody has questions, then we'll go on to some new knowledge. And I'll switch to where's the browser? Oh, there it is. Okay. And get rid of that. So let's go to Replit. My REPLs. Ah, shucks. Oh yeah, we'll come back to this. Okay. So we have learned how to do for loops to march through a list. We also learned how to do for loops that are marching through a range. So just for review, I know you didn't ask for it, but let's just do that. So for n in a range of 100, that's going to be 0 to 99, colon, print n. And if we run that, it's just called strings. It's not really about strings, but there we are. Okay, so 0 to 99. And we also studied how to enumerate through a list. So suppose we have a list and we have rock, paper, scissors, and we can enumerate through there. And let's do that. Okay, rock, paper, scissors. But notice on line 2 and 3 that there's, what if I also wanted to know the position of the R and the position of the P and the S? Well, I know that I could use index and it would search through. That's not really what I'm talking about. What I really want to know is what I wish there was a way, and there is, to get not only the value, but also its index of that value at the same time. So the first new thing that I'd like to impart to you is the idea that something can return more than one value. So I comma n, where I is going to get the position or the index, and n is going to get the value. So it's called enumerate. And I'm going to enumerate the list. And I'm going to print both values, both I and n. Let's try it. Look at that. So enumerate is a way of marching through the list where not only do you get each value, but you at the same time get the index of that value. And that can be really handy. All right, anybody have any questions about enumerate? Wow, you guys are all so smart. Never have any questions. Okay. Either that or I'm just that awesome an instructor. So I'll go with that. I'll just go with I'm an awesome instructor. All right. My mom thinks I'm awesome. All right, so let's take a look at some more new knowledge. Let me switch to my iPad. Okay. So I want to introduce you to two more keywords. And the first is break. And the second is continue. Now, true for both is they are found in loops. Okay, so just typing in break any old place that's not in a loop is going to be an error. So if it's in a for loop and also in a while loop, we'll study the while loop in a few minutes. So both of these are found only in loops. Second common is typically, or almost always, used inside an if statement. So those are the two properties that they have in common. And let's look at what they don't have in common, what they do. So break is it stops the loop immediately. Immediately. Okay, immediately. Okay, so in other words, the loop exits. The loop is over. However, continue. So break does what it sounds like, and continue also does what it sounds like. And immediately goes to the next iteration. Okay, so what continue does is if executed, it leaves where you are in the middle of a loop and goes back to the beginning of the loop in the next iteration.
I have a question really quick about
I
break.
would love to hear it. Yeah, go ahead.
What's the difference between like break and just exit?
Well, exit leaves the program. Break leaves the loop.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So
that
exit
makes more sense now.
Okay, good, good. May also allow me to draw a picture of what a break does. So the typical for and also a while loop is going to look like this. There's going to be some decision, and that's true or false, right? So if it's true, you come down here and you get some code. And if one of the, so if something break, if you don't execute the break, you'll finish your code block and then go back up to the top. Namely, it's a loop, right? So there's your loop. The false comes down here. Now, if you execute the break, you also come down here. Okay? So that's what it means to leave the loop. Let's contrast that to continue. Let's see. So let's contrast that with continue. You have your decision. That's part of the loop. Go to the true part. You go inside a code block. So if something or other, continue. Let's put that in there. And if that's not executed, you will come back to the top. And this is the way that false goes. So if you execute the continue, it follows this path. Okay, so anybody have any questions? Looking at faces. All right. So let's play. Let's play with break and continue, get some practice. Fire up Replit. Okay. And I'm glad I muted in time. You didn't want to hear that. Okay. So tell you what, how about a for loop? For v in the range of 10, so 0 to 9, and print v. Now we know what this is going to do, right? We know what this is going to do. Let's run it, and it prints 0 through 9. So what if I wanted to skip multiples of 3? First question is, do you know how to, can you remind me how to find multiples of 3? What can I use?
Would it be like mod?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So if v mod 3 is 0, it's a multiple of 3. Okay, so before we get to the right answer, let's just make sure that this works. Multiple of 3. And let's put a space there. And I'm not going to print a new line. Oh gosh, this is going to be so awesome. Okay, let's try that. Okay, so that's that. So we've got multiples of 3. Good. So what if we wanted to, instead of highlighting that it's a multiple 3, if we wanted to skip multiples of 3? That would be continue. All right, let's try that. And 0 and 3 and 6 and 9 are skipped. Okay. Now let's say you come up with a value of 5, which we know we will. And if you get to 5, we want to exit the loop. That would be break. Let's try that. So we reached 5 and we stopped. Okay, so once again, the pointless exercise of me asking if you have questions. Does anybody have any questions about break and continue?
Uh,
Okay, Santana, so no question?
I was trying to think of something like, because with the one thing that we did for the D&D generator, I was fiddling with that on my own, like on my own time, because I
Cool.
had a session like the same day that you gave that out, so it's perfect for me. I was messing with it and I was trying to figure out like if I wanted to make a character bald for certain races and I wanted it to break out of the loop if that one showed up in it. I was trying to figure out if that would actually work with something like this, but I couldn't figure it out or not.
Okay, and could you describe what you want to accomplish in a different way? Because I didn't quite understand. Did you
So
say
like,
bald, B-A-L-D?
yeah, BALD. So like
Okay.
if the race is orc, I'd want the hair color that I wanted to pick out of it because I gave like an entire list of like hair colors. I wanted it to break off of the hair color and just make it say bald for every orc.
Okay, that's, yeah, so that sounds like an if.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah. So here, I'd be happy to work that out. So let's do something like hair color is 1, 2, 3, or 4, where 1, 2, 3, or 4 means blonde, red, etc. Okay. So I'm just using numbers because it's shorter.
Oh yeah.
And race, and let's say it was orc. So if the race is double equals orc, then, and you just want to print these out, right?
Yeah, just print them out.
I got to do an import, don't I? From random import choice. Okay. So bald, 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 but let's say it was human. Then it would be 4, 1, 1, 4, 4. That's a lot of 4s. Okay, at least we got something else. Does that help you?
Yeah, that definitely does.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And let's see if I can get back to where I was before. Getting close. There we are. Okay, questions about break and continue? Anybody? All right.
I do have one question about it real quick about continue. So
Awesome, thank you.
for the continue, it says it immediately goes to the next iteration. So in the code we wrote, if v like the modulus divider of v is zero, of 3 is 0, then it just continues. So it doesn't write any of the multiples of 3. Then even if we went to like 6 and 9, it wouldn't write them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I'm going to comment out the break so that you can see more.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
I was just a little confused. I wasn't entirely sure what it. Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah. So notice that both break and continue are almost always associated with an if statement. And the reason for that is straightforward in that if take, for example, break. If break was not part of an if statement, you'd get through one iteration. That's it. Right? So that's why break and continue are normally associated with an if. Okay. All right. So let's see if we can come up with another example of where we could use break and continue. How about this? Write a program. Write a program that prints random integers from 0 to 100 inclusive if the number is 91, break. Okay, so go ahead and write that. And also, otherwise, print the number. So to do this, do I need any imports? No imports?
Yeah, no import.
Okay. What function do we use to get random integers?
Oh yeah, we do for the random. Yeah.
Yep, that's right. So from random import what?
Randint.
Yeah, random.
Good, good. All right. So let's see. You know what? I'm not quite sure the for loop is appropriate for this. Because doesn't it seem like the for loop is great when you know in advance how many times you want to enumerate or iterate, sorry? Like here, I can iterate 10 times. Great for a for loop. I have a list. I can iterate through each member of the list. Great, for loop. But this one says, keep looping until something happens. Okay. Actually, in this case, it's keep looping forever until something happens. So maybe there's another kind of loop, and in fact there is. So while true, n is rand int of 0 to 100. And now if n is 91, what should I do?
Break.
Yeah, break.
Yep, there was a white horse. Okay, and otherwise print the number. So while is a different way of looping, and it looks like this. So while some condition, some expression is true, colon, do a code block. So if nothing changes the condition, then it's an infinite loop. Now you might think that infinite loops are bad, always bad, because they never stop. Now, if you're coding a pacemaker, that's a good thing. Okay, then you have an infinite loop. Okay, so a picture might look like this. Here's the code coming down. You have your decision that evaluates the condition. So, and it has a yes or a no. So while true, do the code block and come back here. And false, damn, if that doesn't look just like a for loop. Wow, amazing. So for loop and the while loop are very closely related. But a for loop does some automatic things like get the next value from a range or get the next value from a list. Whereas a while loop is much more general. There's no automatic getting of something. So let's go back and look at the code and see if we can complete that. So while true, now true is a constant. It can't change. So I just wrote an infinite loop. But is that necessarily a bad thing? No, in this case, because I do have a way out. Okay, let's run that. Okay, so I got a bunch of values and it stopped. Ooh, this one stopped in just a, oh, I forgot to mute. Going again. Hi, I'm back. Let me get a drink. But you see, this one in only a few loops, I happen to roll a 91. Let's try it one more time and see if we get something else. In this one, I went a really long time. So, and this would go as long as necessary until line 9, followed by the break on line 10. Okay?
Professor,
Yes, Jonathan.
in this case, could we also use like an exit, like the exit with the parentheses as well?
In this particular case, they work out to pretty much the same thing. But let me make the code a little bit different so that you'll see there's a difference. Okay, so you ready? So there's no exit here. I'm using break. So when there was, oh, that's a lot of values. Okay, so when the loop is broken, I'm after the while loop. Let's change the break to an exit and see the difference. See, I finally hit a 91 and the program exited. It didn't go to line 13. It never got there. Do you see the difference?
Yeah.
Right, so break leaves the loop but continues running the program, whereas exit leaves the program. Program is exited. Okay, so how about we try something else? Let's call, how would we loop 100 times using a while? Because if you remember the picture, it's identical. The picture is actually identical to a for loop. So there must be ways of turning any while loop into a for loop or any for loop into a while loop. And indeed there are. So I'm going to count to 100. in this with this new set of code. So I'll say the counter is 0. And while the counter is less than 100, let me get that. I'll just put this in as a continue and get rid of that line. And here's counter. Okay, what do you think? Now there's a bug here, so when you run this, be prepared. Oops, well, yes, there is a bug there, so let's make that counter also. I'll give you a moment to get this down. Try running it and be prepared to kill it with Control-C. Okay, so I'm banging on the keyboard here just so that you can see it's an infinite supply of zeros. So get ready with Control-C, Control-C. So that was an infinite loop, but I didn't intend one. So that's a bad problem. Can you tell me why this one's an infinite loop?
I mean, the counter never ever, like, it doesn't count up at all. It just stays 0.
Right, that's a perfect answer. Remember when I was showing you the picture and explaining the while loop, and it literally says, if nothing changes, there it is. If nothing changes, you have an infinite loop. So in order to make it, in this case, a non-infinite loop, there's nothing there that's changing line 4, right? Counter is not being changed. So I'll do this. So counter plus equals 1. Counter equals counter plus 1. All right. Does that fix it? Let's try it. Hello? Isn't it curious that it stopped on line 91? I mean, not line 91, but value 91. So it looks like I'm in an infinite loop again. So Control-C comes to the rescue. So it's in an infinite loop because the continue causes the loop to start over, but it didn't change counter. So there's your infinite loop. Let's put the counter plus equals 1 here also. Try it. And now it works with the, let's see, 90, 91.
I think because doesn't it go up by 2 now?
No, but I'm just, I'm expressing some constant, oh, there it is. It's skipping 92. Interestingly. Okay, so why is it skipping 92, not 91? I was expecting it to skip 91. So if it's 91, it becomes 92 and continue. Ah, all right, that's why. So the code is doing what I told it to do. My mistake. So becomes 92 here. Yeah, okay. I have to convince myself that this code is correct. So here you see that, yeah, sure, I can make any while loop into a for loop or any for loop into a while loop, but the while loop is more general and it does less automatically. If this had been a for loop, I could just hit continue and it would not have been an infinite loop because automatically a for loop would move on to the next value. But a while loop, you have to do it yourself. So once again, let me repeat, because I'm sure the question is on your lips. when would you use a for loop and when would you use a while loop? Here's the rule of thumb. If you know in advance how many times the loop, then for loop is the right one. If not, then the while loop is a good first guess. Okay, there are exceptions to both of these rules, but this is a rule of thumb. Okay. So this, at this point, we have talked about the new knowledge that I wanted to present. Does anybody have any questions about those 4 keywords? All right. Okay, so I'm about to destroy this code. Does anybody want me to pause for a moment? Okay. All right, so in project 2, you have to create a histogram which will record the accumulated results of rolling 2 die. So to help give you some confidence that you'll succeed, why don't we write a program now that is similar to, but not the same as, project 2. So it won't be the complete project 2, it'll be something similar. So I'm going to write out the spec. Write a program that accumulates a histogram, the rolls of 1 6-sided die, and prints the results just once at the end of the program. Unlike project 2, which prints every 10 loops. Okay? So give that a start, take a few minutes and see how far you get, and then we'll do it all together. Okay? Okay, by the way, any guess is what the histogram should look like when we're done?
Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with percentages next to each one of them.
Yes, that's our goal, but what do you think the percentages will be?
Even,
Anything curious?
like it'll be the same.
Yeah, right. That's what I was after. Okay, so let me mention, this is not a brag, this is not a boast, but what I want to do is convey how well compensated computer science can be. My son, I just got a text, My son is 1 year post-graduation in computer science. And his first job was at a big insurance company, and I think it was like 90K. And then his second job, this is still within 1 year, he decided he wanted to go work for a startup at 150K. Okay, so the startup last week closed without warning. They just, thanks for all the fish, get out of here. So he just texted me, he just got another offer. So within a week, he got another offer of 150K. So so of course I'm proud of him, but the point I'm making is computer programmers can be well compensated. Okay, has anybody made some progress? Anybody have a thumbs up? No thumbs up? Okay, well, we can deal with that. By the way, my son's favorite language, Python. And that's what he codes in for that huge salary. So, so we need random integers, and I think you can very quickly tell me what I need to write. I need an import, right? So what do I write?
From random, import randint.
Good. Thank you for being prompt and Johnny on the spot. Okay, now let's read the spec. It rolls one 6-sided die and accumulates. So in project 2, it's going to ask the user for how many times to run the experiment. Okay, but then it also needs that's good. Let's put that in the back of our minds. But first, we need a place to accumulate the results that I've been calling a histogram. And you see in the spec for project 2, look at it. You see in the spec where it talks about that? Where it has histogram equals, and I want to create a list where each of the values is 0. So can you help me out with that syntax? Anybody?
Brackets 0 and then like closing bracket and then times 13 or I guess 7 in this case.
Okay. Yep, we can use 7. Tell you what, let's use 6 though. And you'll get an appreciation as to why the 13 made it a little easier. Okay, so we'll use 6, but that's exactly the right answer. Let's ask the user now. Number of experiments. Boy, that's a lot to type. So from now on, instead of that, I'm going to just say there. Is that a good variable name? Does that help you understand your code? Of course not. How about, I'll just use I. After all, in the past, I used I. But in this case, I is not a good variable name because this variable has a specific meaning. So why not make the variable name indicate that meaning? I doesn't tell you anything. I was using it just as a throwaway. So number of experiments is input. And how many experiments do you want? And what sort of data does input return? Like, can I do math on this? Print number of experiments plus 1. Can I do that?
No, you need it to be an integer.
Perfect. Right, so let's put int around that. Okay. So now I need a loop. Should I use a while loop or a for loop?
Just a 4, right? Because we know that we only want to do it once.
Yes, well, we know how many times. We
Yeah.
can do it more than once, but we
Yeah.
know in advance how many times. Yes, perfect. Thank you. So for, okay, so let's say I'm so resisting putting in I, but I won't do it. I just won't do it. I'll put in for trial number in range of number of experiments. Okay. Okay, so how do I roll a dice from a 6-sided die? Anybody?
Yeah, to equal like random to 0 to 6. Or 1 to 6, 1 to 6.
Okay, good. So you saw me making a face like I smelled something bad. Okay, good. All right. So we rolled the die, and now we want to apply the result to the histogram, which we're using the list called histogram as a place to accumulate the number of rolls of each value of the die. So how can I do that? So if I roll a 4, I want to increment one of the bins. If I roll a 5, I want to increment a different bin. Anybody? How about histogram and which bin should I increment?
Die roll.
Okay, good.
But wouldn't you want to do it -1 because the list is shifted 1 down?
Yes, exactly right. Thank you. And you don't have to do this the way that I told you to go about project 2 by padding out the length of the histogram variable with some extra spaces. So what would have gone wrong here? Let's remove this and do the experiment. How many would you like to run? 10. Boom. So there, I must have rolled, what happened is I rolled a 6, but the indexes of this list go from 0 to 5. So that's why I received the very good advice to do die roll -1. So this is the increment. This says the variable on the left is repeated on the right, and then at 1 is added to it. Okay, well, that's going to do the experiments. Let's just see how we're doing. histogram. Let's try it. 10. Cool. All right. Let's do 10,000. Cool. And they're roughly the same, roughly. What should the sum be of these numbers in the list? Anybody? For no matter what I enter for the number of experiments, what should the sum be?
Will it always be 6 in the list?
Well, there'll always be 6 items, but since every time I roll a die, I increment by 1, the value of all of the entries in the list should be the same as the number of experiments.
Okay. Mhm.
Right? Now, a good idea would be to put in some type of double check. So, like, if the number of experiments is not equal, what's a fast way of summing the whole list? That's a white horse question. How do you sum the whole list?
Sum?
That's why it's a white horse question. So sum of histogram. And you can say this bad. There is a bug somewhere. Now, hopefully you'll never see that. But if you did have a bug in the calculation, your code would find it for you. Let's try that. And I hope we never see it. Good, we didn't see it. Good, we didn't see it. There's what, 100,000? We didn't see it. Good, but you see how that lines 14 and 15, this is a good practice. Lines 14 and 15 are sitting there in your code, watching your back. That's called defensive programming. Okay, I'll just write that down, even though it's not necessary, but okay, so defensive programming my pinky hit the wrong value, hit a button. So defensive programming is putting in extra code that watches for errors. Because the worst possible outcome is your program produces the wrong results. And the airplane falls out of the sky, the pacemaker kills the patient, the missiles, the ICBMs are launched, right? So the worst possible outcome of any program is to produce the wrong results. It's even worse than crashing. Wrong results, worse than crashing. Because a crash is like, holy cow, it crashed. There must be a problem. But if it runs and just produces the wrong results, it's like, I don't know, are the results right, wrong? I don't know. So the worst possible outcome is using bad results. So that's why if you can find ways to put in self-checks, forms of defensive programming, it's a good idea. Okay, so we've computed the histogram. Now let's print it out in the style of project 2. Okay, so we need a loop. And once again, we know exactly how many times to loop, because we want to loop through each of the members of histogram. So that, again, sounds like a for loop. For the value in histogram, let's print. You know what I'd really like to print? I'd like to print the value of the die roll and its value in the histogram. And of course, later I want it as a percentage. But I can compute the value of the die, but I have to write extra code for that. You know, I could create a counter and I can keep incrementing the counter. But it seems to me we learned a way to get both the index of something in a list and the value of something in a list at the same time. Does anybody remember? We learned it today. Scroll back in your notes.
Enumerate.
Exactly. Right. So how about this? So for index, comma, value in enumerate histogram. Now I'm going to use string formatting. So here is the string dot format, format. Yep. Okay. And I'd like to say, I want to print out the die number, the die roll in brackets. Yeah. So there, and now the way that you do string formatting is you have to, this string is going to be a template of some kind, and you have to tell it where the placeholders are for your data. And then for the second value, so there's going to be two values here. The first one is index, and the second one is value. Let's just try that and see what we get. Did we get anything from that? Oh, let's remove this line. Okay, that's not exactly what I wanted. Let me make it look a little more what I want. So I wanted a separate bracket there, and let's say a separate bracket there. Let's try that again. Okay, good so far. But I didn't really roll a 0, did I? So how do I correct the first column?
Would you have to put index +1 at
That,
the print?
yep, that's an excellent idea. Let's try that. Perfect. Now, how do we convert this second column to percentages? So it would be the value of each individual member divided by the total number of experiments, which on line 14, we found it's guaranteed to be correct. So divided by number of experiments. Try that. Oh, looking pretty good. But that doesn't exactly look like a percentage. What else should I do to make it a percentage?
Print a percentage sign.
Okay, yep.
And multiply by 100.
Ah, good. All right. So here's my percentage sign. And let me put in the times 100. Okay. That's looking pretty good. But I don't like the way there's one decimal place, there's two decimal places, there's a lot of decimal places. Let's take advantage of string formatting to give me exactly 2 decimal places. And frankly, I'm going to get rid of the percent sign. Didn't like it. No, I'll put it in. No. So does anyone recall how to print a fractional or floating point number with exactly 2 decimal places?
It's a colon
Yes?
with the 2 to the right.
How about 0.2, because we want decimal places. And then it's supposed to be a float. So 0.2f after the colon. Wow. That's looking just like project 2. Let's just for grins, let's try out. You don't have to do this. I'm just interested. So there's 1,000. There's 100,000. There's 1,000,000, right? 1, 2, 3. No, that's 10 million. Let me do it over again. here's 100,000 and 10,000, 100,000. Let's do 100,000. Or did I make that too big? They dumped me. Okay, let's try it again. They said, no, that's too many loops. Python strings py and okay, so here's 100. Here's 100,000. Yeah, okay, we'll just do that. And those numbers, they look pretty good. Let's make it 1,000,000. 100, 1,000, 100,000, and here's 1,000,000. Okay. So I think you'll see, you'll recognize that the more random experiments we have, the closer we get to truth. So clearly, if I have too few experiments, I get numbers that are all over the place. Let's try this. This is worst of all. Okay, that's guaranteed to be obviously too few experiments. So show of hands, who is in a major that has a class like, a required class like experimental design? No biology, no chemistry, no. Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Well-
a chemist, but I don't know of a class called experimental design.
Okay, well, I think it'll be at least part of your senior seminar.
Oh yeah, could be
Yeah.
then, probably.
Right, because,
Okay, that makes
you
sense.
know, yep. It actually does take some knowledge to properly design an experiment that will produce the expected results, correct results.
Mhm.
Right. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about this program? I want to highlight the code. So there.
Can you explain what line 12 is doing again?
Okay. So to do that, I'll draw a picture. Okay, so we've got histogram, which is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, so there are 6 entries, and we want to simulate rolling a die, and the die has values 1 through 6. So 1 through 6, and that's the randint that we're using. So the problem is that if you look at the indices to access individual members of the list, they're at index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, 4, and 5. So what would happen if you rolled a 6? It would try to access this one, and your program would crash with an exception or an error, which would say something about index out of range. So we have 2 choices. One choice is to change the randint from 0 to 5. We could do that. Or we could keep it as, but by the way, don't do that when you have 2 die. We can do this because we have 1 die. Okay, so that. Or when we write the code to apply the roll to the histogram, we can subtract 1 from the die roll. Histogram. And which one? It would be the rand int 1 to 6 minus 1. Now I combined 2 lines into 1. I put the randint minus 1 directly into the reaching into histogram. So this minus 1 is adjusting for the fact that lists begin counting at 0, index 0. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, let's take a look at the code again. And oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I'm about to get all the way through a class without showing the wrong thing. Wow. Nobody had to say, Professor, you're showing the wrong thing. Okay, this will be a first. Okay, any other questions about the code? So either consult the video that when I finally upload it, or perhaps take a screenshot, use your phone, because this looks similar to Project 2. So I'm hoping that right now you feel a lot more confident about being able to execute Project 2. All right. Well, that's the material that I wanted to present. If you have any questions, I'll stick around. But other than that, we could also end a little early. What do you say?
That'd be
Okay,
fine
have
with
a
ending early.
You'd be okay with that? All right. Well, So would I. So have an absolutely awesome weekend. There is another major storm coming. And we're not talking politics, I'm actually talking weather. It's supposed to be awful. Like our area is supposed to get like 1 to 6 inches or something like that. 7 to 9 inches, something like that. 300 feet of snow. It's awful. Not really. Okay. So have a great weekend and reach out to me by email if you would like. Remember, we have a tutor, Bailey Wellen, and she's great. She's absolutely awesome. Okay. So see you, everybody.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good one.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
weekend.
Thank
Thank you, Professor.
you. Bye-bye.
Professor, I had one question. So
Yeah,
for,
go ahead, Alan.
For a for loop, it automatically adds one for every iteration, right? For whatever variable.
Well, it's 1 by default, but
Okay.
in your range, you could specify a different stepping value.
Oh, okay. So like, I think in the for loops we didn't specify anything, so it just automatically add one.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So here, let me draw for you. So range, let's say 100, is the same as saying range 0, 100, and that both of these will step by 1.
Yeah.
But if you'd like to step by a different value, then you specify a third parameter.
Okay.
So range from 0 to 100, step by 5s.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
you too.
Yeah. Hey, Professor, I had a question.
Yeah.
How would the example before the last example, it keeps telling me, and I don't know why it does this to me a lot. It says indentation error, unexpected indent, and then it has it
Okay.
underlined.
Okay, well, so if you recall, Python is totally dependent upon indentation to
Okay.
impart meaning to the program. So it's super finicky. So
Can I show you what it looks like?
yeah, show me.
How do I do that?
Share, and then pick a window.
Should I share at the bottom? Oh, right there. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Count it. It doesn't like this line, and it looked just like yours. And then it says to go, like, is print not supposed to be here?
Okay, so there is some inconsistent indentation there. If you look at line 5, it
Okay.
ends right on one of those vertical lines.
Wait.
No, line 5 was correct.
Okay.
But line 7 and 8, they're off somewhere. So no, if you want the print to be part, of the loop. Okay. I'm also seeing line 4 and 5 are indented too far. So remove some spaces at the beginning of line 4 and 5 so that it lines up with line 2. Good.
Oh, I see. The SC
Good.
line up, and then this is way over here then.
And then,
But it should
yeah,
be-
it should be lining up with 2. Yeah, line 7 should be lined up with 2.
Okay, yeah, that probably helped. And then this.
Okay.
Does
Now
that matter?
should be, that one should be all the way to the left because it's
Right.
not part of the loop.
Oh,
Okay, now you still have an indentation problem, but go ahead and find it.
yes. Jeez Louise.
Let's see, what does it say there?
No
I can't
spacing.
read it.
Oh, you can't. It says indentation error. Indent does not, and then I'm in the way. Match outer indentation.
Okay,
Line, does it
so
say-
yeah, so take a, but it's not that line. See, it says line 7.
Does it like that it's not attached to it? Well, yeah.
Okay, so your goal was to line it up with line 4. And the way you had it a moment ago, there was 1 too few spaces. So backspace. Good. And then that one should be no indentation at all.
Should have faced in the chip bag eating it.
Okay.
Okay, but right, this is not correct because it says after loop, after loop, after the loop. So that's on a problem with line 8. Remove the indentation entirely. Yeah.
Dang it.
Oh.
Everything.
Good,
good.
try that.
That is, sorry. Okay, that's what I wanted.
There you go. Yep, so indentation means you're part of an if statement, not part of the if statement, part of a loop, not part of the loop. It's all based on indentation.
Yeah, and that's why I had that error a lot. That's like, I always get that error. So,
Right.
And then did you grade all the projects you said?
No, I graded many of them.
Okay.
And they're
I
looking
thought you-
great. What's that?
I just, when you said that, I went to check the grade and then there wasn't a grade. And then, so I was just curious. Maybe I heard you wrong, but I did.
Yeah, I've checked a bunch of them so far. Graded a
worries.
bunch of them, and they're looking good.
Yeah, we just turned them in too. I heard you wrong. So I thank you for class and answering my question.
Okay,
Yeah,
have a good
night.
weekend.
Yeah, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.